Welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. Terry Wager, and this is my good friend Kevin Peloso, and we're talking about hiring today. Um, Over the last couple of weeks, I've worked with a lot of people around hiring, and Kevin has had his own interesting situations with hiring in his business. And so we thought that would be a good topic today. Kevin, let's just start out by uh, tell me what happened with your situation with hiring, because I think you thought you had a real good hire, and then what happened?
Oh, yeah. So long story short, with our business, we needed more help in the field. Getting a lot of sales. We built up our log, and then we were getting backed up in terms of fulfillment. Um, Ultimately, Vinny's running production. We were running a little thin, and so we were looking for somebody to help jump in and take some of that load off. And we ended up finding this gentleman who worked for a leading builder in the area, who we have a lot of respect for in the industry. And this person had been with them for almost a decade. He came on board. We spoke with them about basically where we're at. We were blatantly honest, and we brought this guy on, and this guy pretty much sold us that he was sort of like not that we were looking for a silver bullet, but he was kind of acting as if he was the silver bullet, which was interesting. But I sipped the Kool-Aid. We ended up bringing on this gentleman, and things were pretty good for about a day, and then ultimately he ended up deciding to leave, and he didn't really give us much of a reason why. And it was to this day we're not exactly sure what happened, but ultimately he spoke with a lot of certainty. He was telling us where that he's our guy. Didn't really negotiate on the pay, and we were paying him pretty much close to what he wanted, and he was happy with it. He agreed right away, and yeah, he came on site once, then took the next day off, and then came on site again, and then the following morning quit.
And so, just goes to show you, give them what they want, and it doesn't mean they're going to stay or be good employees.
Right.
And I titled this Hiring for Coverage because what I see over and over and over again is people hire for coverage, and they hire out of this idea of we got to get people, and we got to be able to do what we got to do. And um, I think you guys were much more intentional and looking, but even when you're intentional, you can still have problems hiring. It is a tough thing. And I think it's probably, in my opinion, it's probably the most difficult part of building a business is building your team. And it's the most detrimental because, we've talked a lot about it, and data is super important in growing your business, knowing where you're at and knowing where you want to go and being able to measure. And that was a nice ding. I like it.
Oh,
And
sure.
and data is super important in being able to look and adjust and see where you're at, kind of like driving with a GPS, knowing where you're at and knowing where you want to go. But having people in your business is going to skew data one way or the other. And so really the people run the systems, the people create systems, the people destroy your systems. Um, and so the business, no matter what business it is, depends on the people doing the system. And so if you don't have the right people, you don't have a right hiring process, and your guys' process is pretty good, but it's still, it's the most difficult thing in a business.
I agree. I also think it's one of the most. Sorry for the other ding there. I agree. I think it's probably the most difficult and most important piece of a business, but I would also add it's the most underrated piece of a business. I think
Absolutely.
people, business owners that I've spoken with, they kind of write off hiring people, or they say there isn't good help, etc. But I think they undervalue the importance of learning how to recruit and build your team, because it is a skill all in and of itself. It's not just about the work you're doing, but it's about working on the process for how you find people to do the work that needs to get done. And that is how you really compound a business.
Absolutely. I think we talked about the idea of recruiting versus hiring a few weeks back. And so we talk about hiring a lot because it's a super important topic, but um, hard to find good help. Well, it's hard to know how to be discerning on who you're talking to in the interview and really developing that skill, or finding somebody that knows how to do that skill and being able to hire that person is super important. And I feel blessed because Christine has developed that hiring skill uh, through working at Starbucks the 19 years she did. And she's really, really good at that hiring skill. But I see over and over and over again the businesses that we work with, uh, they hire too fast. They hold on to people a little too long. Some people, when we start working with them, are afraid of letting people go that just don't work with their culture, and they're really hiring for coverage instead of building the culture. And I think it's a blessing that that guy left at 3 days in, because obviously he doesn't fit your culture.
Right. It's interesting though, because sometimes people, um, he was basically the epitome, I would say, of the skillful politician mantra. If you've seen the past videos, we've talked about that a little bit. But ultimately, this guy sold a good game, but he did not back it up. It was interesting though. He sold even above what we expected, which I thought was a li- looking back, hindsight's always 2020. Looking back, I thought it was a little odd because we were brutally honest about like what's going on in our business. And it's not that as you grow, there's going to be growing pains, and like fulfillment at one point, well, at this point we were speaking on, was pretty difficult. We were spread pretty thin trying to move these larger jobs forward. And having somebody come on, like it would have been a very useful position to fill, but it's unfortunate. And even the way it ended, it was very bizarre. But you don't, I think, even with the best process, at least at this point, and from what I've seen, it's really hard to have 100% success rate. I don't think anyone does, right?
Right. Absolutely.
About
Absolutely.
odds in your favor.
Yeah. And I think that that's very true. There is no 100% success rate. Um, we're not we're not looking for that in hiring. I mean, it's impossible. And that's the unfortunate thing. But I think one of the biggest problems that people have, like I said, is they hire for coverage instead of really being intentional. And you guys were intentional, and I like how you guys have really adopted what Christine and I have talked about with your hiring, and having them jump through hoops a little bit and making the hiring process a little bit longer and rigorous. And I was listening to a guy named Jim Sullivan talk about this today, and he was saying, when you're hiring, think about, and that this does not mean that you have to have them all your life, but think about, if this person you're hiring is a lifetime hire, do you want this person in your business for a lifetime? Would you want to be with them day in, day out? And if you think about hiring as a lifetime kind of thing, it's you know forever. Okay, let's be a little slower in bringing them on. Let's be a little more deep in our discovery of this person, and really, how am I going to be with them in a month, in a year, in 10 years? Am I really going to be interested in being around them still? Are they going to be fitting my culture?
And I would add too, make sure when you have a process set, you actually follow it. So one mistake, one mistake that we had on this last one, we didn't check the references. He gave them to us. We didn't even bother calling, and by we I mean me. I didn't
Yeah,
do it.
yeah, and
Someone else was.
good point, and I love that you put your hand up saying I goofed. I didn't check references. It would be interesting to go back and check to see if that was a pattern, just for yucks and giggles. But I think that really looking at these hiring, if I'm just hiring to get through a few shifts, whoever I've brought in before is going to receive my bad judgment in bringing somebody in to cover a few shifts, whatever it is. And so think about who, and I really think about this. And we work with a bunch of quick serve restaurants that have a tendency to, hire and lose people. And it's very much like we have customers that come in and we have a few regulars, but most of the time we have one and done customers because they're traveling or whatever. And our employees are kind of like that too. So we have them cover a shift or two and they're gone. And one of the owners of a company that I was talking to a few weeks ago was like, they lost 35 people in 2 months. Like, what? Okay, I get turnover, and turnover can be good sometimes, especially if you're removing people who don't fit in your culture. But if you've lost 35 people in 2 months, that's almost more, that's one every other day.
How many people were on staff?
Well, that's the thing it's the turnover because they have a number of stores, they have a number of restaurants, but they're losing two a day. That's a lot of people. And
Yeah.
so when you're looking at that, is that really a retention issue? Is it a turnover issue or is it a hiring issue?
Hmm.
And for me, I think it's a hiring issue. You're bringing people in there and you're just saying, "Hey, do you have a pulse? Can you tie an apron? Or can you put a tool belt on?" Great. Do you know what a hammer is? Okay, perfect. You know what it is. Good. Now go do this work. But you didn't really qualify them or disqualify them. And that's where I think a lot of people have problems is they don't disqualify people. And so they bring disqualified people in and then they get stuck with either mediocre to low ability people or low desire people, and they're taking a paycheck but they're not willing to actually do the job. And as a result, you have a lot of people who are in there. But now think of your clients or think of the patrons. If it's a restaurant or a different kind of thing, they're paying attention to who's working and they're getting your phone just ding 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 ding.
That's why it's actually my laptop that's doing that.
They're getting a sense of the business from who's in there. And if you have mediocre players, if you have mediocre team members, everybody who sees that is going, okay, this place is mediocre or worse. Oh, they don't train their people very well. Oh, what kind of product am I getting from them?
Yeah, it becomes a cancer, really.
It really does.
I mean, that's like the big downfall of what a lot of businesses will go through that try to grow into something, especially something like the trades where you can technically just work up by yourself. But whatever business you're in, if it starts off as a solopreneurship kind of thing, a lot of people end up reverting back to that because they don't put in the time to learn how to hire and manage properly.
Right. And then they move into a confirmation bias. Well, it is hard to find good people. Can't do it. I'm going to do this business myself. I'm going
People
to keep it small.
underestimate it. They underestimate how much work it really takes and what the reward is when you do hit it. I mean, you're talking literally millions of dollars on the line. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the highest leverage skills you can learn is how to hire the right people, because everything else within your business will grow exponentially if you end up landing the right person with the right attitude, because they're like autopilot. They're going to be telling you what to do. You're not going to be telling
Right.
them, you know.
Right. And even better than autopilot, they're going to be telling you what to do. They're going to be giving you suggestions on how to actually grow, how to build what they see, and they're going to be that ideal team player that you referenced a minute ago with the skillful politician. But they're going to be the ideal team player instead of a skillful politician or a bulldozer or a lovable slacker. They're going to be in there giving you the information that you don't necessarily have about the day to day in your business, as a business owner. And it's amazing how many people live in this quasi victim mode. They own the business, but they're victimized by it because, well, I can't find good people. You know, no matter what I do, they just don't want to work as hard as I do. I can't get them motivated the way I want. And the reality is if you're saying that, if you're thinking anything along those lines, you can't train people to be motivated. You can't train them to be a fit in your culture that they're going to work extra or do the extra thing or go fix those things that are broken. They're going to leave the things broken. And then if you leave the things broken, I'm thinking like, to give a little context, one of the restaurants I was working with had broken fridge, right? And it's been broken for years, and they started using it as a cabinet. Well, if you're not fixing it, if I am the owner am not fixing it, and they've said something about it, they're not fixing it, it became a cabinet. Well, you're giving a clear information to those people that you don't care enough. You might care, but not enough. I'm not going to give you the exact equipment that you need. Here, I'm going to give you a hammer, but it's kind of spongy where it hits the nail. But I mean, after a while, it might work. If you turn it on its side, you can use the side of it. Or this screwdriver is pretty solid. You can use that instead of the hammer. And it's like, we're not giving the tools they need. They take their cue from that, and then they don't perform the way you want them to. And so it's really being intentional about your whole business, but hiring people that are going to actually go that extra mile. And if there's a problem, they're going to fix it. Another place I went to, I was actually in there, and I noticed they had this jiggly piece of machine, and I looked under the table that it was bolted to, and the table's particle board. And you probably know, you work in the industry, that if you tighten a screw on particle board, it's going to drill into it and it'll fall apart. It's particle board. And so I actually took a few minutes, went across the street to Home Depot. I got some really big fat washers, and I went over there and I put it in. I don't own that place. I don't work there. But I was consulting in a manner of speaking, and I fixed it because that's what people do when they care about a system and when they care about making sure that people can do their job. It took me 10 minutes. And that's including going to get the parts and coming back.
Yeah,
it's like, that's what you're looking for in team players, in going above and beyond. And if you don't have that from people, don't hire them.
Yeah, I mean, it's really competency over systems. A lot of people, they focus so heavily on systems. I was actually talking with Vinny this morning about it. This emphasis on really being able to tell people exactly how to do their jobs. In theory, it makes a lot of sense, but in practicality, it's nearly impossible, because how systemized are you going to get? I mean, systems are good, but it gets to a certain point where you just need straight up competency. And the reality is the people that are competent will come up with the right kinds of systems to use, versus you trying to figure out what the right systems are.
Absolutely.
Jobs. So I know that's like a common misconception I know I had. but I know it's one that I've seen across the board. You know, this whole systems. It's like it's
Well, you bring up a good point, and I'm actually working with, and I'm working with a company that had a lot of problems with the leadership, and one of the leaders left, and now they're actually looking at putting in systems. And I was working with them specifically, and I was suggesting, let's get the leader out, and then let's work on getting each person to start developing the system that they focus on. Well, this particular client, I'm not exactly sure what was going on in his mind, because he won't talk to me about it, and I'm not sure where the relationship is at right now, to be honest. But he went and got somebody to actually put systems in for him. Mind you, the word abdication comes to mind for me. And so this other company, he's paying an amazing amount of money for them to come in and put systems in.
What's abdication?
Good question. Abdication is washing your hands of it and letting somebody else do it, where delegation is understanding what to do, how to do it, and then after it's in place, being able to coach to it the person you put in charge of it. And so there's the idea, and if you want to read more about it, I don't know if Michael, what's his name, E-Myth, I don't know if he actually discusses in depth the way I'm talking about it, but delegation is what we want. And delegation is where I actually create a system. I make sure that it's working, make sure that it's doing what I want, and then I teach you, for instance, teach you how the system works, and then I coach you on the system and make sure that it's working. Now, in this other business, there's a number of people that have their own particular job, and my suggestion was each person work with you, the owner, on developing a system that's going to work for them, and refining the system and communicating with the other people about the system. And so you have a parts person who's doing the system of buying parts and things like that. You have a person that's focused on inventory and making sure that's working. You have a salesperson who's making sure that, or a service person that's making sure that the service system is working right. And just let's walk through each job. Well, what this guy did, and I don't understand why, because we haven't really been able to talk about it at this point, is why did we do that and have somebody come in and just put in systems that may or may not work? You're already a couple $100,000 to, a lot more than that. I'm understating how in debt you are. And I'm trying to help you out on a low price point because we have a relationship and I care. And then you bring in the big dog that's going to bring in systems and tell everybody how to work them and leave. If I haven't heard something that is setting somebody up for failure more than that, I'm confused about it. And where I'm going with this is the idea that he abdicated the responsibility to create the system instead of helping coach all of his people around building their own system that they can buy into. And one of the things that I talk a lot about when I'm working with teams and building teams is I don't want to create something, walk away, and have you not be able to do it, not want to do it, or not see the reason to do it because, well, I created it myself and then made you do it. But if you buy in and we do it together, and I'm using your knowledge and ability in that to head up the system, and I coach you with it, and we come up with a system that works together, well, man, you're bought in, right? nah, let's not do that. Let's just bring somebody in, put systems in place, and then we'll see how they work.
So, um, Hormozy talks about this too. Not to get into his stuff, but I
Oh,
love the concept.
I'm
Um,
okay with that as long as we don't go and start trying to
yeah, no, we're not
pizzas
gonna.
away for free. Um,
No, but he has this saying which I think is just so true, and it applies to this. Is it's not a silver bullet; it's 100 gold BBs. And I feel like what your clients
I
come
like that.
for
I like that.
silver bullet solution, like just solve everything all at once now, versus the 100 gold BBs model, which is like, all right, you know what, like, and you bring this up, Terry, is like, what's important right now? How do we
Yes.
fix this problem? All right, we fix this. Likely there'll be a ripple effect from that. But what's the next problem? And
Yes.
it ends up ripple affecting to solve even more problems that maybe you don't even realize you have, and that's where you start to attract really good talent, and then they start doing their thing and covering even further blind spots. So um, I think that's a concept people, especially starting businesses, um, should try to understand. Is like there's no real silver bullet solution, and even with hiring, it's the same thing. You're gonna screw up. It's a guarantee. I
Yeah.
don't care who you are. You've had bad hires if you've been in business and you've haven't only worked for yourself.
Right. And the bad hires aren't because the people are bad. The
Mm-hmm.
bad hires is because you're not clear on what you're doing with your hiring. And hiring is a skill that needs to be learned. And the more that you try to do it by trial and error, the worse it's going to be. You got to learn from somebody who's learned how to do it. And you got to learn from somebody who has a pretty good track record of it. And I think anybody, it's not me. I mean, I'm pretty good at it. But if you really wanted to talk to somebody about creating a hiring system that is powerful and clear and has some good results, Christine is the person to talk. She's amazing because she understands the intention behind it, and she also thinks about on much more of a global scale. If I'm going to have to work with this person every day, I want to actually make sure that they get along with me and I get along with them, and they're going to get along with everybody else. And I say get along, but it really means fit the culture. And then let's look if they have the aptitude for it, if they have the ability to do it, if they have the constitution to do it, right? If they have the fortitude to be able to do the job that you're bringing them into. Are they just looking for a job for right now, or are they looking for a job that's going to fulfill them for a longer period of time?
A career.
A career. And people often think of quick serve restaurants as something that is not a career, but these days, because the competition is so great for jobs, and the pay is actually getting insane for even those jobs. It's like we got to start looking at those as career kind of focus, and we got to also look at them as, okay, you might start as making a sandwich or flipping a burger, but is there a succession plan in place for that? And can you maybe walk in as a burger flipper and end up owning the place or owning a number of them that have a lifetime kind of achievement ability in them?
So that's an important piece too that I've learned, is having that future laid out for the prospects, right?
Absolutely.
Work for your company. They want people that see it long term. They want to see a future with you. To
Absolutely.
attract and retain great talent. They're not there for a quick ride. They're there for a long haul, and to bring somebody like that on, they need to be sold on what you're chasing, and they fit into that puzzle.
And there has to be the idea of personal development plans, and we have a little graph that we talk about and teach people of, okay, this is where you're at when you start, this is the next step, this is the next step, this is the next step. And it's really a ladder of success, and different money goes with each, but different responsibility and different ability. But this first step that's down here, beep, beep, I wish I had that on screen. That one right there, well, that's culture. Do you fit the culture? If you don't get on the stairs. You have to fit the culture first. And then ownership is the last. And then the ability to build people, the ability to inspire people, the ability to run multiple units or be involved in multiple businesses at one time. And so if I'm talking about, you know, our own multi-unit stuff, or if I'm talking about our consulting company, well, we can hire you to work with one client, and then one client, and then one client. But if you show me that you're really good at what you're doing the way we're good at what we're doing, you could work with several at once. And be, you know, are you just an administrative person? Are you just a research person? Or are you a client facing person? Can you run workshops? Can you do these different things that we do? Can you bring clients in? What is your skill set? But before that, do you fit our culture? Do I want to see you every day?
Yeah, that's one thing that I do. One of our steps too is like, because I'm kind of the first.
Go figure.
What's that?
I said, go figure.
Yeah, right. One of the first. I'm kind of the first step. If somebody wants to join the company, I'm the first one they have a conversation with, and I'll just have like a casual one over the phone. And really, it's honestly just to see if I like them. Like if I can envision talking to this person, you know, for a longer periods of time. Are they interesting? Is there a level of, am I annoyed? Like if I'm annoyed,
right. And I would actually alter what you just said by, it's not do you like them, it's do you dislike them?
Yeah.
Because do I dislike them? They're done. Do I not dislike them? Okay. Now we're going to see where they're at. And I think of your partner Vinny there is like, he's the litmus test, right? If he dislikes them, there's probably a good reason. And it's not necessarily understandable why when you look at him, like, what's wrong with this guy? But he just has this under unconscious almost like, I don't like him.
Right.
Okay, why? And then he's, you know, they've got to prove themselves to be likable first. And I kind of like that. And so it's not, are they likable? Because everybody can show up and be likable a little bit, but do I dislike them? Do they get on my nerves? Do they irritate me? And it kind of goes, I'm often, I look at things from the like the photograph has the positive where you can see the photograph. Well, I like the negative where you see what's not the photograph, but the other side of it. And looking at, okay, what are we not talking about? And so we want to build trust. Well, no, I want to remove distrust before I even try to build trust. Mm. Do we like them? No, I don't care if we like them. Do we dislike them? And so do they get on our nerves? Are they pushing a button that I don't want to be pushed? Are they causing some kind of unconscious internal thing that I don't really want in my life? Do they walk in and all of a sudden I feel stress? If that stuff's happening, then they're probably not going to work. And then we start looking at, oh, okay, what is the culture we're looking for? Do we want somebody who brings stress? Do we want somebody we dislike right away? And so it's the same idea as, do I like them, but do I automatically have that dislike? And there's not too many people I don't like, but there is that man, something's off here. Something's wrong. And like, okay, we're just going to pass on that. And now move to the next person and really get clear on the culture and get clear on this idea of who are we looking for? And who are we going to pattern this thing after? And there's also the reality I said earlier that we want to think of these people as being with us for life. But there is the reality that people only stay in some positions for a year or two. And this day and age, even high level jobs in the C-suite, people are around for about 4 years. And so you got a 4-year kind of deal with that. And so there is attrition, there is turnover. It's a fact, and it's something everybody has to really understand is happening. But we can reduce turnover, and I think that you'll agree with this. I don't know, but we'll see. We can reduce turnover if we become very, very skilled and slow and intentional in our hiring.
100%. That's where the way I look at it as a business owner is, if an employee doesn't work out, that's where I look first, is the hiring. How did they get in?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that if businesses spent much more time on crafting and developing and refining their hiring processes, they would have a lot more success, even though on the front end they might be paying more by spending so much time on it. The long run,
More money.
they're going to have better hires. They're going to build a better team, and they're going to have much better results.
I agree. That's been my experience thus far.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's all we got time for today. Thank you very much for you, Kevin, and you being you, and your story in the beginning was very informative. And you know, I just think that it's amazing how even when you're doing things right, it's not necessarily going to work out all the time. But it's taking that information and moving it into the next experience, because every time we do that, we're going to get better. But having a real solid plan of how we're going about it makes all the difference in the world, because we just worked a plan.
Michael Jordan's missed more baskets than he's made.
Absolutely.
You got to keep playing.
Got to keep playing. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Dr. Terry Wager, Kevin Peloso.
Good to be here. Take it easy, guys.